Right now, somewhere out there, a person who has never read a single page of philosophy is outthinking you, outplanning you, outmaneuvering you in every room they walk into. And here's the wild part. It's not because they're smarter. It's because 500 years ago, a guy named Niccolò Machiavelli figured out the real, cold, uncut truth about how the human mind actually works. And everybody who studies him, quietly, secretly, uses it to get ahead, while the rest of the world is out here playing checkers. Today, that ends, because in the next few minutes, we're about to hand you the exact same mental blueprint. No fluff, no sugarcoating, just the raw, battle-tested strategies that can make your mind sharper, colder, calmer, and straight up more dangerous, in the best way possible. If you stick around, by the end of this video, you are not going to see people, power, or yourself the same way ever again. So buckle up, because the hidden mind is about to break this down like nobody else on this platform will. What's good, everybody, and welcome back to The Hidden Mind, the channel where we take the darkest, deepest, most brutally honest psychology on the planet and turn it into something you can actually use in your day-to-day life. If this is your first time pulling up, do yourself a favor and hit that subscribe button right now, because we drop content like this all the time. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Today we're diving into the mind of Niccolò Machiavelli, the original master of strategy, power, and human nature. And we're breaking down exactly how his way of thinking can make your brain 200% sharper. Not in some cheesy, motivational poster kind of way. We're talking real, tangible mental upgrades that change how you read people, how you handle pressure, and how you move through this world. Before we get into it, let's get the housekeeping out of the way real quick. If you're vibing with this content, smash that like button. It genuinely helps this channel grow, and it costs you literally nothing. Drop a comment down below and let us know where you're watching from. Or better yet, tell us which part of this video hits you the hardest, because we read every single one. Share this video with your people, your squad, anybody who you think needs to hear this message, because knowledge like this is meant to spread, not sit in one corner collecting dust. And if you really want to ride for this channel, if you want to show some extra love, you can support us directly with a super thanks. It goes a long way, and it lets us keep making this kind of deep, no-filter content for free for everybody. All right, that's enough talk. Let's get into it. Part 1. The man who saw the world for what it really is. Let's set the scene. Florence, Italy, early 1500s. This place was not some peaceful little town where everybody held hands and sang songs. This was a snake pit. Political families were stabbing each other in the back, sometimes literally. Popes were leading armies, and alliances flipped overnight like a bad relationship. Right smack in the middle of all that chaos was a guy named Niccolò Machiavelli, a government official who watched all of it happen up close and personal. He wasn't some ivory tower philosopher writing theory from a comfy chair. This dude was in the trenches, negotiating with kings, watching empires rise and fall, and taking mental notes the entire time. And here's where it gets real interesting. Machiavelli eventually got thrown out of power, accused of conspiracy, even tortured for it. And while he was sitting there stripped of everything, his job, his status, his reputation, he didn't fold. He sat down and wrote one of the most controversial, most talked about, most straight-up misunderstood books in human history, The Prince. And no cap, this book has been feared, banned, praised, and studied by everyone from kings to CEOs to modern-day hustlers who understand that the game of power never actually changed. Only the players did. Here's the thing. People get twisted about Machiavelli. They hear his name and immediately think manipulative, evil, cold-hearted. But that's the lazy take. What Machiavelli actually did was something way more valuable. He stripped away the fantasy. He looked at human beings, not as we wish they were, but as they actually are. Selfish sometimes, loyal when it benefits them, brave when they have to be. And he built an entire framework around dealing with reality instead of dealing with wishful thinking. That right there, that one mental shift, is the first step to making your mind sharper. Because most people go through life reacting to the world they wish existed, and they get blindsided every single time reality doesn't match up. Machiavelli's biggest flex, the thing that makes his mind such a valuable blueprint even 5 centuries later, is that he refused to lie to himself. And that's rare. That's genuinely rare. Most of us lie to ourselves daily about people's intentions, about our own weaknesses, about what's really going on beneath the surface of a conversation. Machiavelli trained himself to see past all of that fog, and that's exactly what we're going to teach your brain to do throughout this video. Part 2. The mindset shift that changes everything. Okay, so here's principle number 1. And honestly, if you only take one thing away from this whole video, let it be this. See the world as it actually is, not as you want it to be. This sounds simple, but for real, 95% of people never actually do this. They walk into situations with rose-colored glasses on, expecting fairness, expecting logic, expecting people to act the way they should act, and then they get blindsided, confused, hurt, when reality doesn't cooperate. A sharper mind operates differently. A sharper mind looks at a situation and asks, what's actually happening here? Not what am I hoping is happening? Machiavelli talked about this constantly. He said, it's better to deal with the truth of a situation than the fantasy of it, because the fantasy will get you played every single time. Think about it like this. If you go into a business deal assuming everybody has your best interest at heart, you're setting yourself up to get taken advantage of. But if you go in clear-eyed, understanding that everybody, including you, is operating out of self-interest to some degree, you're not being cynical, you're being accurate. And accuracy is power. This is where a lot of people get scared off, because they think seeing the world clearly means becoming cold or losing your humanity. That's not it at all. You can still be a good person, still have values, still care about people, but you do it with your eyes wide open instead of squeezed shut. That's the difference between naivety and wisdom. Naive people get burned over and over because they refuse to update their view of reality. Wise people, sharp people, they observe, they adjust, and they move accordingly. Here's a mental exercise you can start doing today, right now, that trains this muscle. Next time you're in a conversation, a meeting, even scrolling through a group chat, practice separating what people say from what people do. Machiavelli was obsessed with this distinction because he watched countless leaders promise loyalty and then flip the second it benefited them. Words are cheap, actions are the real data. Train your brain to weigh actions 10 times heavier than words, and watch how much clearer your read on people becomes almost overnight. That right there is a legit upgrade to how your brain processes information, and it costs you nothing but attention. Part 3. The Fox and the Lion. Now let's talk about one of the most famous metaphors to ever come out of The Prince, the fox and the lion. Machiavelli said that a truly effective person needs to be like a fox to recognize traps, and like a lion to scare off wolves. Let that sink in for a second, because this is deep. A lion is powerful, strong, intimidating. But a lion can still walk right into a trap because it relies purely on strength and doesn't see the setup coming. A fox, on the other hand, is clever, cunning, sees every angle. But a fox alone can't fend off a pack of wolves when things get physical or aggressive. You need both. Strength without cunning gets you trapped. Cunning without strength gets you overpowered. The sharpest minds in history, and honestly, the sharpest minds walking around today, they've learned to blend these two energies. Let's break down what being the fox looks like in real life. Being the fox means you don't take things at face value. You look for the angle nobody else is looking for. You ask yourself, why is this person being so nice to me all of a sudden? Why does this deal sound too good to be true? Why is everyone agreeing so fast? Foxes notice patterns. Foxes notice when something smells off before anybody else even picks up on it. This is a trainable skill, not some innate gift only certain people have. You build it by staying curious, staying observant, and never fully switching your brain off, even in comfortable situations, because that's exactly when traps get set. Now let's talk about being the lion. Being the lion means when it's time to act, you act with full confidence and full force. No hesitation, no wishy-washy energy. A lot of people can spot the danger, can see the trap coming from a mile away, but they freeze up when it's time to actually respond. That's a fatal flaw. Machiavelli was clear about this. Recognizing a threat means nothing if you don't have the backbone to handle it. So part of sharpening your mind isn't just about seeing clearer, it's about building the confidence to act on what you see without second-guessing yourself into paralysis. Here's how you build this combo in your daily life. Start small. When you notice something off in a conversation or a deal, don't just notice it and let it slide. Practice actually saying something, asking a clarifying question, pushing back a little. That's you flexing your lion energy in low-stakes situations so it's ready to go when the stakes get higher. And when you're observing people, practice writing down or mentally noting patterns you catch. Who talks a big game but never follows through? Who seems overly eager for no clear reason? Who changes their story depending on who's in the room? That's you sharpening your fox instincts. Do both consistently, and you'll notice within a matter of weeks that your read on people and situations gets scary accurate. Part 4. Reading people like a book. All right, let's get into something everybody wants. How to read people better. This is probably the #1 skill Machiavelli mastered, and it's the #1 thing that separates a sharp mind from an average one. Most people go through interactions on autopilot. They hear words, they respond to words, and that's it. A sharp mind operates on a completely different frequency, picking up on body language, tone shifts, inconsistencies, timing, and unspoken motives. Here's a truth bomb straight from Machiavellian thinking. Everybody is playing some kind of role. Not in a fake, dishonest way necessarily, but everybody presents a version of themselves depending on who they're talking to and what they want out of the interaction. Your boss acts different around you than around their boss. Your friend acts different when they need a favor versus when they don't. This isn't some conspiracy theory, it's just human nature, and once you accept it, instead of fighting it, you start noticing the tiny cracks where people's true motives leak out. So how do you actually train yourself to read people better? First thing, watch for the gap between someone's words and their energy. If someone says, "I'm totally fine with this decision," but their jaw is tight, their arms are crossed, and they won't make eye contact, that gap is telling you the real story. The words say one thing, the body says another, and 9 times out of 10, the body is more honest. Machiavelli understood that people lie constantly, sometimes even to themselves, but the underlying behavior rarely lies. Train yourself to trust behavior over words, and your read on people levels up instantly. Second thing, pay attention to what people do when they think nobody important is watching. How someone treats a waiter, how someone talks about people who aren't in the room, how someone reacts when things don't go their way in a low-stakes situation. That's the real them. People can fake politeness and charm for a short window, especially when they know they're being evaluated, but the mask slips eventually. Sharp minds catch those slips because they're always quietly observing, never fully switched off. Third thing, and this one is big, notice consistency, or the lack of it, over time. Machiavelli was a master of long-term observation. He didn't judge people based on one interaction. He watched patterns unfold across weeks, months, years. Somebody might seem trustworthy in one moment, but does their story stay the same when you ask about it again later? Does their behavior match what they promised last month? Sharp minds keep mental receipts. They notice when somebody's actions today contradict their actions from 3 months ago, and they factor that into how much trust they extend going forward. Here's a little exercise you can start today. Next time you're around a group of people, don't focus on being the loudest voice in the room. Instead, spend the first 10 minutes just observing. Who talks the most and says the least? Who's quiet but clearly clocking everything? Who changes their opinion based on who agreed last? This kind of quiet observation might feel awkward at first if you're used to jumping straight into the conversation. But trust the process, because this is literally how you build the reading people muscle. The more reps you get in, the sharper your radar becomes, and eventually, it becomes second nature. You'll be picking up on things in real time without even trying. Part 5. Mastering your emotions, the ice-cold mind. Now here's a big one, and honestly, this might be the hardest principle to actually apply, but it's a total game changer once you get it down. Machiavelli believed that a person who lets their emotions run the show is a person who can be predicted, manipulated, and ultimately defeated. Think about it. When you're angry, when you're desperate, when you're overly excited, your decision-making goes out the window. You become reactive instead of strategic. And anybody paying attention, anybody with even a little bit of that Machiavellian awareness, can use your emotional state against you. This doesn't mean you become some robot with no feelings. That's not the goal here. And honestly, that's not even possible for most humans, nor should it be. What it means is you learn to create a gap between feeling an emotion and acting on it. That gap, that little pause, is where all the power lives. Somebody says something disrespectful to you, and your first instinct is to snap back immediately. But a sharp mind catches that impulse, takes a breath, sometimes literally just a couple seconds, and responds strategically instead of reactively. That pause is the difference between looking desperate and looking in control. Let's talk about staying calm under pressure, because this is a skill that will legit change your entire life, not just your Machiavellian game. When things go sideways, and they will, that's just life. People are watching how you react more than they're watching the actual problem. If you panic, if you lose your composure, people lose confidence in you fast. But if you stay level-headed, if you handle chaos with a calm, collected energy, people start to trust you more, respect you more, and honestly, fear crossing you a little bit too, in a healthy way. That's not manipulation, that's just how humans are wired to respond to composure versus panic. Here's something Machiavelli understood on a deep level. Appearing calm, even when you're not fully calm on the inside, is itself a skill worth mastering. This isn't about suppressing your emotions forever or bottling things up in an unhealthy way. It's about controlling the timing and the space in which you process those emotions. Feel what you need to feel, but do it on your own terms, in your own time, not in front of the exact person or situation that's trying to provoke a reaction out of you. That's playing chess, while everybody else is playing checkers. Let's get practical. Here's a technique you can use starting today: the 5-second delay. Anytime someone says or does something that triggers an emotional spike in you, anger, embarrassment, panic, whatever it is, count to 5 in your head before you respond. Not because 5 seconds magically fixes everything, but because it interrupts the automatic reaction loop your brain wants to run. In that 5 seconds, ask yourself one question: what response actually serves me right now? Not what response feels satisfying in the moment, but what response actually gets you closer to what you want. This one small habit, practiced consistently, will make you noticeably sharper and noticeably harder to rattle within just a few weeks. Another thing worth mentioning, Machiavelli talked a lot about fear versus love when it comes to how people perceive you. But there's a deeper layer here about emotional control specifically. People who are easily read, easily provoked, easily flattered into bad decisions, those people get used. People who keep their emotional cards close to their chest, who don't give away every reaction on their face. Those people are much harder to manipulate because nobody can predict exactly what's going to set them off or win them over. Emotional unpredictability, when used wisely, is a form of protection. Part 6. The power of patience and timing. Let's talk about something most people in this fast-paced, instant gratification world have completely lost: patience. Real, disciplined, strategic patience. Machiavelli was obsessed with timing because he watched countless rulers rise to power too fast, get overconfident, and crash just as fast. He also watched patient, calculated leaders play the long game and end up on top while everyone else burned out chasing quick wins. Here's the thing about patience that most people misunderstand. It's not passive. Patience in the Machiavellian sense isn't sitting around waiting for good things to happen to you. It's actively positioning yourself, gathering information, building resources and relationships, while resisting the urge to force an outcome before the timing is right. Think of it like a poker player who knows how to fold a weak hand instead of going all in just because they're bored or impatient. The players who win big over the long haul aren't the ones playing every single hand aggressively. They're the ones who wait for the right moment and then strike decisively. This applies to basically every area of your life: career moves, relationships, financial decisions, even arguments. The person who can wait, who can sit in discomfort without rushing to fix it immediately, almost always ends up with the better outcome. Machiavelli watched leaders lose entire kingdoms because they couldn't stomach waiting even a few more months for the right opportunity. They got impatient, made a rash move, and it blew up in their face. So how do you actually build this kind of patience if you're naturally more of an impulsive, act-now type of person? First, start recognizing the difference between urgency and importance. A lot of things that feel urgent in the moment, an email that needs a response right now, a decision that feels like it needs to happen today, aren't actually as time-sensitive as your anxiety is telling you. Practice sitting with that discomfort. Give yourself permission to wait 24 hours before responding to something big. You'll be shocked how often that extra time changes your entire approach for the better. Second, get comfortable with the idea that not acting is sometimes the most powerful move you can make. This one's counterintuitive for a lot of people, because our culture glorifies hustle, grind, constant motion. But Machiavelli knew that sometimes the sharpest move is to simply watch, gather more information, and let a situation develop before you commit to a direction. Acting too early, before you have the full picture, is one of the fastest ways to make a mistake you can't take back. And third, when the moment does come, when the timing is finally right, you have to be ready to move fast and decisively. Patience isn't an excuse for permanent hesitation. It's about waiting for the right window and then absolutely capitalizing on it without dragging your feet. This is the lion and fox combo again. The fox waits and watches. The lion strikes when it's time. Master this rhythm, and you'll find yourself making way fewer regretful decisions, and way more decisions that actually pay off long term. Part 7. Playing the long game. Strategic thinking. Here's a mental shift that separates sharp thinkers from everybody else. Thinking 3, 5, 10 moves ahead instead of just reacting to what's directly in front of you. Machiavelli was a master strategist because he never looked at a single move in isolation. He was always thinking about consequences, chain reactions, how one decision today would set up circumstances 5 years down the line. Most people operate purely in the present. They make decisions based on how something feels right now, without stopping to consider the ripple effects. A sharp mind does the opposite. Before making a big decision, a sharp mind asks, okay, if I do this, what happens next? And then, what happens after that? It's like playing chess instead of playing checkers. You're not just thinking about capturing the piece right in front of you, you're thinking about the whole board, several moves down the line. This kind of long-term strategic thinking applies directly to relationships too, and this is something people often overlook. Machiavelli talked extensively about alliances, who you align yourself with, who you keep at arm's length, who you invest time and trust into. A sharp mind doesn't build relationships randomly or purely based on who's convenient in the moment. A sharp mind thinks about who's actually going to be valuable, loyal, and aligned with their goals over the long haul, and invests energy accordingly. This isn't cold or transactional in a bad way. Genuine care and strategic thinking about relationships aren't mutually exclusive. You can deeply value people and also be intentional about who you let close to you. Let's talk about a practical way to build this long game muscle. Before any major decision, whether it's a career move, a big purchase, ending or starting a relationship, whatever it is, force yourself to write out, even just mentally, 3 potential outcomes down the road. Not just the immediate result, but what happens 6 months later, what happens a year later. This simple habit trains your brain to stop thinking in the short-term reactive mode that most people are stuck in and start thinking several steps ahead like a true strategist. Another piece of this puzzle: sharp minds don't show their whole hand up front. Machiavelli understood that revealing your entire strategy, your entire plan, to everyone around you gives them the power to counter it or interfere with it before you've even had a chance to execute. This doesn't mean being dishonest or sneaky in a harmful way. It means being selective about what you share, when you share it, and who you share it with. Not everybody needs to know your next move. Not everybody needs access to your full plan. Keep your long-term vision close, execute quietly, and let your results speak once the plan is already in motion. That's a straight-up power move that protects your strategy from outside interference, sabotage, or even just well-meaning but distracting opinions from people who don't actually understand your vision. Part 8. Understanding power, alliances, and betrayal. Let's get into a heavier topic, but an important one: power dynamics. Machiavelli spent his entire career studying how power is gained, kept, and lost. And honestly, understanding these dynamics will sharpen your mind more than almost anything else on this list, because power dynamics show up literally everywhere: in your job, your family, your friendships, your relationships. Here's a hard truth Machiavelli laid out clearly: not everybody who's nice to you is actually on your side, and not everybody who challenges you is actually against you. This flips the intuitive way most people think about relationships. We're conditioned to trust people who are pleasant and be suspicious of people who push back on us. But a sharp mind knows it's way more nuanced than that. Some of the most dangerous people in your life will be the ones who never say a harsh word to your face, while some of the most valuable people in your life might be the ones who challenge you the hardest, because they actually care enough to be honest. So, how do you tell the difference? This goes back to what we talked about earlier. Watch actions over time, not just words in the moment. Someone who consistently shows up for you, who's honest even when it's uncomfortable, who doesn't disappear when things get hard. That's real loyalty, even if their delivery is a little rough sometimes. Someone who's constantly complimenting you, agreeing with everything you say, but disappears the second you need something real from them. That's not loyalty, that's convenience. And convenience evaporates the second it stops being convenient for them. Machiavelli also talked at length about the danger of surrounding yourself with people who only tell you what you want to hear. He warned that this is one of the fastest ways for a leader, or honestly anybody, to lose touch with reality and make bad decisions. If everybody around you is just nodding along, agreeing with everything, never pushing back, you're not actually getting good information, you're getting flattery. And flattery feels good in the moment, but it's genuinely dangerous long term, because it blinds you to your own blind spots. A sharp mind actively seeks out honest feedback, even when it stings a little, because that's where real growth and real strategic advantage comes from. This means surrounding yourself with people who respect you enough to tell you the truth. And it also means training yourself to to not get defensive or emotionally wrecked every time someone offers you a hard truth. Remember what we talked about earlier, emotional control. Somebody gives you honest, even harsh feedback, and instead of getting defensive, a sharp mind pauses, considers it objectively, and decides what's actually useful from it. Now let's talk about betrayal, because Machiavelli didn't shy away from this topic at all. He was very clear that betrayal is, unfortunately, a part of human nature and a part of navigating power in any environment, business, politics, even friend groups. This isn't meant to make you paranoid or distrustful of everyone around you. That's not healthy, and it's not the goal here. But it is meant to make you realistic. Protect yourself by not putting all your eggs in one basket when it comes to trust, resources, or opportunity. Diversify who you rely on. Don't make yourself completely dependent on one single person or relationship for your success, your happiness, or your security. Because if that one thing falls apart, you don't want your entire foundation to collapse with it. Part 9. The Art of Silence and Unpredictability. Here's a principle that flies under the radar, but honestly might be one of the most powerful tools in the entire Machiavellian playbook: the power of silence. In a world where everybody's constantly talking, oversharing, posting every single thought online, the person who stays quiet, who doesn't feel the need to announce every plan, every opinion, every move, has a massive advantage. Think about it this way. Every time you reveal information about yourself, your plans, your weaknesses, your next move, you're handing someone else a card they can play against you later, whether intentionally or not. Machiavelli understood that information is power, and giving away too much information for free just to fill silence or to seem impressive is a leak in your strategic armor. A sharp mind learns to sit comfortably in silence without the urge to over-explain, overshare, or fill every gap in conversation. This doesn't mean becoming secretive and cold with everyone in your life. Your close relationships still deserve honesty and openness. What we're talking about here is being more intentional about what you broadcast to the wider world, to acquaintances, to competitors, to people who haven't earned that level of access into your life. Not every accomplishment needs to be announced before it's finished. Not every plan needs to be shared before it's executed. There's real power in letting your results speak after the fact, instead of your intentions speaking before it. Now let's talk about unpredictability, because this ties directly into staying sharp and staying protected. Machiavelli noted that people who are completely predictable, who always react the exact same way, who follow the exact same patterns every single time, are the easiest people to manipulate, outmaneuver, or take advantage of. When people know exactly how you're going to respond to a situation, they can plan around you. But when you're a little unpredictable, not chaotic or unreliable, but just not an open book, people have to actually think before they try something with you, because they're not sure exactly how you'll respond. Here's a small practical way to apply this. Stop announcing every single move before you make it. If you're planning something big, a career change, a project, a personal goal, consider working on it quietly and revealing it once there's real progress or once it's done, rather than broadcasting the plan from day one. You'll notice something interesting happen when you do this. People can't interfere with, discourage, or steal a plan they don't know about yet. Your energy stays protected, your motivation stays internal instead of dependent on outside validation. And when you do reveal what you've accomplished, it hits different because it's backed by actual results instead of just promises. Part 10. Reputation, the currency of power. Let's talk about something Machiavelli considered absolutely critical: reputation. He believed that how people perceive you often matters just as much, sometimes even more, than the reality of who you actually are, at least in terms of how effectively you can operate in the world. This might sound a little uncomfortable at first, but stick with us here, because there's real wisdom in it. Machiavelli talked about the balance between being feared and being loved. And honestly, this gets misquoted and misunderstood constantly. People think he said, "It's better to be feared than loved, full stop, end of story." But that's not the full picture. What he actually said was more nuanced. Ideally, you'd be both loved and feared, but if you can only have one, fear tends to be more reliable than love, because love can be fickle and can disappear when it's convenient for someone, while a healthy respect, a healthy caution around crossing you, tends to hold up more consistently. Now, let's translate this into something usable for everyday life, because most of us aren't running kingdoms. In modern terms, this is about commanding respect, not just being liked. A lot of people spend their whole lives trying to be liked by everyone, trying to avoid any kind of conflict or disapproval, and honestly, that approach makes you easy to walk over. A sharp mind understands that you don't need everybody to like you. What you need is for people to respect your boundaries, respect your word, and understand there are real consequences if they disrespect you or take advantage of you. Building this kind of reputation starts with consistency. Do what you say you're going to do. Follow through on commitments. Don't let people repeatedly cross lines without addressing it. Every time you let a boundary get crossed without any pushback, you're quietly teaching people that your boundaries don't actually mean anything, and that erodes your reputation and your power over time, even if nobody says it directly to your face. Another piece of reputation management Machiavelli emphasized: perception often outweighs raw truth in the short term. This means how you present yourself, how you carry yourself, how you communicate matters a lot, sometimes just as much as the actual substance behind it. This isn't an excuse to be fake or dishonest. It's a reminder that confidence, clarity, and composure in how you present your ideas and yourself will get you taken more seriously than someone with equally good ideas who presents themselves with hesitation, apology, and uncertainty. Sharpen not just what you know, but how you communicate what you know. Part 11. Decisiveness, the boss move. Let's talk about decisiveness, because this is where a lot of smart, thoughtful people actually fall short. You can have all the sharp observation skills in the world, all the patience, all the strategic long-term thinking, but if you can't actually pull the trigger and make a decision when it counts, none of that matters. Machiavelli was clear that hesitation, indecision, constantly flip-flopping, these are some of the fastest ways to lose respect, lose opportunities, and lose ground to people who are willing to commit to a direction. Here's why decisiveness is so powerful, even when the decision isn't perfect. A confident, timely decision, even an imperfect one, almost always beats a perfect decision that comes too late. Machiavelli watched countless leaders lose their advantage simply because they waited too long trying to find the flawless option, and by the time they finally decided, the opportunity had already passed, or their enemies had already adapted and moved past them. Speed combined with confidence is genuinely a competitive advantage in almost every arena of life. Now, this doesn't mean being reckless or making decisions without any thought at all. Remember, we already talked about the value of patience and observation. The key is knowing when the observation phase is over and the action phase needs to begin. A sharp mind can tell the difference between "I need more information before I decide" and "I'm just scared to commit, so I'm hiding behind the excuse of needing more information." Be honest with yourself about which one is actually happening. Here's a practical technique for building your decisiveness muscle. Give yourself decision deadlines. For smaller decisions, give yourself 60 seconds. For medium decisions, give yourself a day. For big, life-altering decisions, give yourself a reasonable but firm window. A week, 2 weeks, whatever fits the situation. And commit to actually deciding by that deadline instead of letting it drag on indefinitely. This trains your brain to trust its own judgment instead of endlessly second-guessing. And honestly, most of the time, our gut instinct after gathering reasonable information is more accurate than we give it credit for. One more thing worth mentioning here. Own your decisions once you've made them. Machiavelli respected leaders who committed fully to a chosen path, even under pressure, rather than constantly second-guessing themselves publicly. If you make a decision and then immediately start showing visible doubt about it to everyone around you, you undermine your own authority and your own confidence. Make the decision, commit to it fully, and if it turns out to be wrong, adjust and learn, but don't spend your energy publicly agonizing over choices you've already made. That energy is better spent moving forward. Part 12. Daily Mental Training. Build the Machiavellian Brain. All right, let's get super practical here, because knowing all this information means nothing if you don't actually build it into your daily routine. Here's a set of daily and weekly mental exercises that, if you actually apply them consistently, will genuinely sharpen your mind in the way we've been talking about this entire video. First exercise, the daily observation log. Every single day, spend just 5 minutes writing down one thing you noticed about a person's behavior that told you more than their words did. This trains your brain to actively look for that gap between words and actions we talked about earlier. Over time, this becomes automatic, and you won't even need to write it down anymore because your brain will just naturally be scanning for these patterns in real time. Second exercise, the pause practice. Every time you feel a strong emotional reaction building up during the day, irritation, excitement, anxiety, whatever it is, practice pausing for just a few seconds before you respond or react. Not suppressing the feeling, just creating that small gap we talked about between feeling and acting. Do this consistently, and you'll notice your emotional control sharpening within just a couple weeks. Third exercise, the 3 moves ahead drill. Before any decision this week, big or small, force yourself to think through at least 3 potential outcomes and what happens after each one. Start with low-stakes decisions to build the habit, then apply it to bigger decisions as it becomes more natural. This builds that long-term strategic thinking muscle Machiavelli was famous for. Fourth exercise, the silence challenge. Pick one day this week where you intentionally share less than you normally would. Don't over-explain yourself. Don't fill every silence in a conversation. Don't announce your plans before they're finished. Notice how it feels, and notice how people respond differently to you when you're a little more selective about what you reveal. Fifth exercise, the honest feedback seek. Once a week, actively ask someone you trust for honest feedback about something. Your work, your behavior, a decision you made. And here's the important part. Practice receiving it without getting defensive. Just listen, consider it, thank them, and reflect on it later. This builds the thick skin and objective thinking that sharp minds rely on to keep growing instead of getting stuck in their own blind spots. Sixth exercise, the reputation check-in. At the end of each week, ask yourself honestly, did I follow through on what I said I would do this week? Did I let any boundaries get crossed without addressing them? This keeps you accountable to building that consistent, respected reputation we talked about, brick by brick, week by week. If you actually commit to these 6 exercises, even just for the next 30 days, you will notice a real, tangible difference in how you process situations, how you read people, and how confident and in control you feel navigating your life. This isn't some overnight magic trick. Machiavelli's wisdom wasn't built overnight either. It was built through years of observation and hard experience. But the beauty is, you don't need 500 years like he did. You've got his entire playbook condensed right here, and now it's just about the reps. Part 13, applying this to modern life. Let's bring this all back down to earth and talk about how this actually plays out in your real, everyday modern life. Because Machiavelli obviously wasn't writing about smartphones and office jobs, but the principles translate directly. In your career, this looks like observing office politics with a clear, unemotional eye instead of getting swept up in drama or gossip. It looks like being strategic about who you build relationships with at work, not in a fake, sucking up kind of way, but in a genuine, long-term thinking kind of way. It looks like staying composed under pressure during a stressful meeting or a tense deadline, while your coworkers are visibly panicking. It looks like not revealing your entire career strategy to every single coworker, and instead letting your results and your consistency speak for themselves over time. In your relationships, this looks like paying attention to how people treat you consistently over time, rather than getting swept up in grand gestures or charming words in the moment. It looks like maintaining your own boundaries and reputation within the relationship instead of constantly bending to keep the peace at your own expense. It looks like staying emotionally grounded during conflicts instead of getting reactive, which honestly leads to way better resolution of arguments anyway, because you're thinking clearly instead of just reacting from a place of hurt or anger. In your personal growth and finances, this looks like playing the long game instead of chasing quick wins that don't actually build anything sustainable. It looks like being patient with your goals instead of getting discouraged and quitting the moment results don't show up instantly. It looks like being decisive when opportunities show up instead of overthinking yourself into missing out. It looks like diversifying your resources and relationships instead of putting all your eggs into one basket and hoping for the best. Here's the biggest takeaway from applying all of this to modern life. None of these principles require you to become a manipulative or dishonest person. That's the biggest misconception about Machiavelli, and honestly, it's a lazy reading of his work. What these principles actually give you is clarity, self-control, and strategic awareness. You can be a genuinely good, kind, honest person and still apply every single one of these lessons to protect yourself, sharpen your decision-making, and navigate this world way more effectively than someone operating on pure naivety and wishful thinking. In fact, we'd argue that good people need this wisdom more than anybody, because good-hearted people are often the easiest targets for those who don't operate with the same values. Part 14. The Final Truth. Power with Purpose. Let's land the plane here with the deepest truth buried in all of Machiavelli's work. The thing that gets lost when people just skim the surface of his ideas and slap the label evil on him without actually understanding the full picture. Machiavelli wasn't teaching people to chase power for the sake of power, or to manipulate people just because they could. What he was really teaching was this: understand reality clearly, master yourself completely, and then use that clarity and self-mastery to actually accomplish something meaningful, instead of getting steamrolled by people who understand these dynamics better than you do. Because here's the truth, and it's a little uncomfortable to sit with. Whether you study this stuff or not, these dynamics are happening around you every single day. Power struggles, hidden agendas, emotional manipulation, strategic maneuvering. This is happening in your workplace, your friend group, your family, whether you choose to see it clearly or not. The only real choice you have is whether you go through life as someone who understands these dynamics and can navigate them wisely, or someone who stumbles through blind and gets taken advantage of over and over without even realizing why. A sharper mind, the kind we've been building throughout this entire video, isn't about becoming cold, calculating, or heartless. It's about becoming clear-eyed, self-controlled, and strategically aware while still holding on to your values and your humanity. That combination, sharp mind, good heart, is genuinely rare, and it's genuinely powerful. Machiavelli gave the world the map for the sharp mind part. What you do with that clarity, what values you attach it to, that part is completely up to you. So here's the real challenge we want to leave you with. Don't just watch this video and move on with your day like nothing happened. Actually apply this. Start with just one principle this week. Maybe it's the 5-second pause before reacting emotionally. Maybe it's the daily observation log. Maybe it's just committing to being a little more decisive in situations where you usually freeze up. Small, consistent reps compound into a genuinely transformed mind over time. That's not some overnight hack. That's just how real growth actually works. And honestly, that's exactly how Machiavelli himself built his understanding. Through consistent, careful observation over years, not through some instant shortcut. And that right there is the blueprint, straight from one of the sharpest, most strategic minds to ever walk this earth. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, genuinely, respect, because that tells us you're serious about leveling up your mind, and that's exactly the kind of energy this channel is built for. Before you close out of this video, let's run it back real quick. If this content added even a little bit of value to your day, do us a solid and smash that like button. It takes 2 seconds, and it seriously helps push this video out to more people who need to hear this message. Drop a comment down below and let us know which principle from this video hit you the hardest, or if you've already been applying some of this Machiavellian mindset in your own life without even realizing it. We read every comment, and honestly, some of the best conversations on this channel happen right there in the comment section. If you know somebody, a friend, a family member, a coworker, anybody in your circle who could use a sharper, more strategic mind, share this video with them. Don't keep this kind of knowledge to yourself. That's not what this channel is about. And if you're new here, seriously, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because the Hidden Mind drops content just like this on a regular basis, diving deep into psychology, power dynamics, human behavior, and everything in between that most channels are too scared or too surface level to actually cover. We keep it real, we keep it deep, and we're not here to sugarcoat anything for you. If you want to take it a step further and directly support what we're building here, you can send a super thanks. Every bit of that support goes right back into making this channel bigger, better, and able to keep pumping out this kind of no-filter content completely free for everybody who needs it. Remember what we talked about today. See the world clearly, master your own emotions, play the long game, read people like a book, and act decisively when the moment calls for it. That's not just a philosophy from 500 years ago. That's a living, breathing operating system you can install in your own mind, starting right now, today, this very moment. The world rewards the sharp, the composed, and the strategic. It's time you became one of them. This has been The Hidden Mind. Stay sharp, stay aware, and we will see you in the next one.